record button. Welcome, everybody, to our virtual coffee break, precious online virtual coffee break. My name is Jess, and today I've got the absolute pleasure of talking to Grace Francis. Can't, can't hear anybody else, but anyway. Um, Grace, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you so much for being willing to share your story. I thought to, by the way, if I look like if my eyes like glance over to the side, it's because I'm looking at my notes. I'm not like watching a film on the side or something. Um, yeah, so I thought what would be good to maybe start with so that everybody, I know some people who are on the call already know you, but if people are watching on YouTube or whatever, they might not know anything about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your now, what you do, your mom, your wife, you run a company. Just tell us a little bit about your life right now.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me and giving me the space to share. It's always a pleasure to be around such amazing women who I find every one of you so expansive. So thank you for this pleasure. And also I should say as well, I've got 3 boys at home and the dog. So if there's any interruptions or the fire alarm goes off, my 16-year-old's cooking pasta. So just get that away first. I am the founder of a creative education company called DramEd, and we go into schools and nurseries and make learning fun and experiential through performing arts. We specialise in early years, and we have a few programmes that teach maths through performing arts, phonics through performing arts, and then we have like a dance fitness programme. And we also just celebrate performing arts in its own right as well. So there's just performing arts. I've been doing that for about 5 years, but been billed 5 years officially.
Yep.
And I've worked with thousands of children. I've branched off into events as well. And we've like done events for Google and little events in shopping centres across the UK and theatres across the UK. And I'm now at the point where I'm training up other performers to do the same, and I'm quite passionate about performers doing the same. The reason why I started this was so I could use my skills in performing arts, because prior to starting DramEd I was an actress and I loved acting and I was so passionate about it, but those in between jobs were really soul destroying, working in the call center. And just those just not using my skills in the way that I knew that I could.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm very passionate about children, and you'll get to know why. Children being able to learn through experience and making learning fun. And also finding a way for performers to be able to use their skills in a way that works for them and still do what lights them up. So I've kind of created like a license that is accessible to performers, where they can teach. I don't touch their profits, but they pay a license fee and teach their programs. And I've got big goals to be all over the world. And when I came to the Precious Awards last year, I was a finalist.
Yeah.
I was going around saying, I want DramEd to be in 26 countries in 5 years. And that was my target, until Arit said, which countries? And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. So I'm going back to work that one out, but yeah.
Yep. Specific. Yeah. Yep. That's amazing. Yeah. So you do a lot of incredible work. And you did just touch on the fact that you have 3 boys at home. Mm-hmm. You have a dog. Mm-hmm. How has your lockdown experience been before we go any further?
So I think like a lot of parents, I kind of started this with like, yeah, I've got this, I'm gonna be the mom that works and I'm gonna be able to teach and all of that. I dived straight in. I think looking back, I panicked.
Yeah.
I was teaching lots of classes in schools and nurseries. I was like, oh my gosh, like all my clients kind of stopped in 1 week. So I just went online to do it, and started a community online for parents and families. We've got like 400 members in the group, and was like showing up. Yeah, that was good. I was showing up every day to deliver what I do for free, but then by about week 3 I got quite burnt out, and I was like, wow, being at home and
Yeah.
trying to do it all is still exhausting. They're all really big
No.
jobs in
Yeah.
themselves, being a teacher, being a parent, running a business, etc. So
Yeah.
I scaled back, took a week, figured out what worked for me,
Hmm.
and went back to kind of, I like just said, look guys, like this is unsustainable, I'm going to
Yeah.
scale back a bit. If you like what I do, here's, you know, a paid version, and still
Yeah.
showing up to some of them for free. So yeah, I'm in a good place at the moment. A lot of inner work is happening for us all.
Yeah.
In terms of homeschooling, I read a article from the BBC about 2 days ago saying that wealthy families are homeschooling for 6 hours a day, poorer families are homeschooling for 4.5 hours a day. And I'm like, I hope everyone's lying, because I'm lucky if I'm managing 40 minutes. So
That's amazing. You touched on the fact that there was, inner work going on for you in this time, and I guess that is a little bit of what we're gonna touch on also now, because I know that it's kind of been this lockdown experience that also caused you to sort of have some stuff come up and deal with some things. So, just again in advance, thank you so much for being willing to sharing that. Your life story, like I said before, is pretty inspiring. Um, your circumstances growing up were quite intense. You're going to talk about that a little bit in a moment. You left home at 15. You got a job. You got pregnant at 16. You had to navigate life as a single teenage mom, working. When you sit here now and you tell your story, I'm like, you sure that's you? That's you? Are you sure that was your journey? So tell us a little bit more about growing up, what that was like for you, how your life started, and maybe how that's influenced even what you do now.
okay, yeah, so just to give you a bit of background and my cultural upbringing. My mum was born in Jamaica. She came to the UK as a baby. My dad is English, and I was born once upon a time. Um, and between, I guess, yeah, I think where I am now, I look back and I realise with all the stuff that happened at 16, I felt like when I went out into the world by myself at 16, I tried to pretend that nothing like the 16, like I just tried to start afresh and pretend that the 16 years of my life hadn't happened. But yeah, I guess I just never spoke about it, or I went to college and went to uni and didn't tell anyone that I was a parent, and just tried to pretend to be someone else, I think. And I only think now I'm coming back to go, okay, my whole childhood is a part of who I am. It very much shaped the person I am and shaped my values, and
Yeah.
that is really important to acknowledge. So yeah, my parents have always suffered from mental health illnesses. My mum suffers heavily from depression and was later diagnosed with bipolar, and
Oh.
she also is an alcoholic. And my dad has always been an alcoholic from as long as I can remember. He's never been diagnosed, because he's just like, he's literally is a like just a traveller.
Yeah.
My dad was he hadn't ever had really a home for himself until
A
recently.
nomad.
Yeah, a nomad, yeah. And yeah, and it's just, I don't think he's ever been to the doctors, and he's quite proud of that, and just somehow,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So but he's obviously got his, you know I think,
Yeah.
looking back, he had a mental breakdown, and he says that
Mm.
himself. Yeah, I think I did have a breakdown at a certain
Yeah.
time. So yeah, they with their illnesses, they were separated from when I was about 5 years old, even though they had my sister. And we basically lived at home with the curtains shut all day. The curtains weren't curtains, they were like blankets pinned to the wall. There was no structure, there was no, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There was no, the house was, very untidy, because my mum, I don't know, she just, she was a hoarder and she collected loads of stuff. And as time went on and we just got more and more isolated, like, she wouldn't answer the door to anybody, because very often they would be bailiffs, not bailiffs. She used to call them shark. What's the word? Some loan sharks. The loan,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the loan sharks would be knocking at the door, and yeah, and then as time went on, I'd asked my dad for a dog and I asked my mum for a dog, and they loved us so much that they both got us a dog, but those dogs had babies, and then before we knew it, we had 14 dogs in the house, and those
Wow.
dogs were neglected because they're not walking 14 dogs, so those dogs chewed through the pipes and the electricity, and then there was dog mess everywhere, and then just things really got out of control. There was, I started to like just recently think back and think, oh my gosh, because we never had a washing machine and we'd have to wash. It was like it was living in UK poverty. I think it was literally
Yeah.
really, in the 90s London, that's how we was living. And to dry my knickers, my mum would iron them, and sometimes she even tried to microwave them, and I'd go to school with crisp knickers. And there was one occasion when should be in size 5 shoes, but I was wearing size 8 shoes to school.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, and then yeah, that was that. At 13, I got a job. I started working.
Yeah.
Still didn't get any better at home, so I guess I tried to get myself out of that situation,
Yeah.
and I did. At 15, I left.
Yeah. That's, I mean, unreal, and like I said, so vulnerable of you to share that story. When you left at 15, what did that look like? Like, how did you find your own place to live? Did you, you, I guess, had to pay your own bills?
Hmm.
How did you manage to do that and have a baby
Yeah.
and go to college and do and get an education? I
So
think that's the part I can't get my head around.
yeah, so I think as well, with the journey of like uncovering all of that and acknowledging that that was my childhood, and those experiences have shaped who I am. I can see how where I lack confidence in certain places because there was times where I was trying to hide as a child, and not be seen. But within that, I feel like my parents did raise a very strong character. I feel like my mum knew that her trauma was her lack of self-love, and that was probably generational. That was
Yeah.
probably a generational thing that she could see with her grandma and with her grandmother. And
Yeah.
in her searching for it, she would, she was very big on Oprah Winfrey and very, very big on Louise Hay, and she'd just write these affirmations on the wall about, us uplifting ourselves and forgiving ourselves and trusting the
Right.
process, and being loved. So within all the mess, me and my sister would always see that it was all around us, just sellotape
Yeah.
the wall on A4 bits of paper. And also when
Wow.
I look back, my dad being the person that he was, he's still a very lovely person who, just wants to do what he wants to do, and I guess that kind of shaped us as well. So I feel like leaving 15 at home and even starting working at 13, I felt a sense of strength inside, like
Yeah.
there is a way to kind of shift the trajectory of my family's life, which is something which I'm very, very passionate about. I really want to shift that trajectory. I
Yeah.
want, if I can, learn to heal not only for myself but for my family, and make sure I can give my children better as well.
Amazing.
um,
Yeah.
so at 15, it obviously didn't happen straight away. I kind of fell into a relationship with a 19-year-old at the time, and looking back as well, that was probably me trying to, I know it sounds awful, but actually when like when you hear stories of, I remember hearing stories of, oh, teenage pregnancy is just so people can, I've heard people say the stigma that girls get pregnant so young because they want to get a flat or whatever, even though that wasn't consciously the thing. I feel like
Oh,
I was just trying to be an adult fast and
yeah.
myself on my feet. I don't know what the thinking was behind it. Obviously I didn't really plan it,
Yeah.
but yeah, but before I fell pregnant, I was in college doing a first diploma, and I didn't have any GCSEs because I'd left school quite
Yeah.
early. And it was a teacher that saw something in me when I got pregnant. I was doing a first diploma and I wanted to do my national diploma, but I went to college up until 9 months, and
Wow.
tried to get to my exams, but I just couldn't. Obviously, baby came, and then the teacher said, he phoned me and said, if you want to come back and do national diploma, we'll just let you come back
Oh,
and do
wow.
that. You don't need to do the exam. So he gave me a chance, and
Amazing.
that was, yeah, that was really lovely. So I did that. I finished college and applied for uni and just kept going for it, kept going in the direction that I always wanted to go in.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's so lovely and beautiful how you can acknowledge how your mom still gave you what she could in the in the midst of her own brokenness and in the midst of her own suffering. And it speaks so much for the power of positive affirmation and the power of how we shape our thoughts and shape our children's thoughts and what we speak over them. The fact that you grew up in the chaos that you grew up in, but this one thing, like these positive words over your life, over and over and over and over, had such an impact on you. Like, we're such a seed sown in you that it would flourish and you would become who you are now. Like, I think that's so incredible and such an encouragement to any of us who either have children or are very actively present in other children's lives. Like, I know I'm very present in some of my friends' kids' lives, to just never stop saying these things and speaking them out and, sowing these seeds of affirmation. Like, I
Yeah,
just feel so encouraged by that.
yeah,
Now, when we've spoken, and you're obviously, we're in the process of getting one of your articles out as well, you've told me a little bit about your process. You've told me a little bit about how you use things like goal setting, educating yourself, reading. I know you're an incredibly avid reader, and journaling and things like that to get ahead in life. I'd be quite keen for you to share with us a little bit more about your process,
yeah.
um, and what that kind of looked like, how it started maybe, and then how you're still doing things that way now.
Yes. Okay. So, my mum, um, obviously like embedded us with the whole affirmations, and I think I took that with me. When I was about 19, I thought, okay, if I'm gonna change the way that my patterns, my habits, right? Because there was things I didn't know how to clean a house. I didn't
Right.
know how to cook. I didn't know, do things like if the door knocked, I'd like just hide. And my husband, my now husband, would say to me, why are you hiding for? It's your house, it's your home, open your door. And little
Yeah.
things like that. So I realized that, and I should say I'm in a blended family of four. I have three sons. My first son was from my previous relationship. I have two children with my husband now, and I have a beautiful stepdaughter, and
Amazing.
she's my husband's daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found the seat. I thought, I'm gonna have to find people, I'm gonna have to learn from other people, and if I can't find them, I'm gonna have to read, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
learn about them. So I started to pick up books from people that inspired me. And yes, The Secret, I started The Secret and kind of like got introduced to that whole like law of attraction thing, and
Mm.
visualizing, and you speak it and it will happen.
Yeah,
And I
manifestation.
went on that journey,
Hmm.
and it didn't quite work the way that I thought it would work. I'd written things down over and over and over till I was blue in the face, and sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. um and then so I kept on learning, kept on picking up books, kept on, Richard Branson, just books from all these people that inspired me. And sorry, I know it's noisy outside.
You're fine.
Yeah, and so yeah, then I feel like I've got to a process where I I know how to like navigate certain things. So I feel like my thing is now, what I've learned now is that our perception of ourselves is everything. Your self-worth and your level of self-love is everything. Like, I literally believe if you want to achieve things in any area of your life, you need to believe that you are deserving of it. You need to feel in your power, I deserve that. You need to have that perspective of yourself.
Mm.
And an example that I use is, Donald Trump, or example that I heard was Donald Trump, for example. He, no matter how much respect I don't have for him, he can make money, lose it, because he has done, he's lost it before and then makes it back up like that. And I believe the reason for that is because he believes he's deserving of it. His self-worth when it comes to money and finances is up there. And so I'm like very much about reprogramming my financial blueprint to become worthy of that. So my whole journey and my whole habits have kind of, I work towards doing that and bringing my level of self-worth up into certain areas. One example is relationships. For some reason, my self-worth in relationships is so high. Like I've always had a really high sense of self-worth in relationship. I just, you know, after I got out of a relationship with my son's dad, I was just like, I know, you know, that, you know, I am worthy of a good relationship. I'm going to find a good relationship. I knew what I wanted and I've got it. You know, I met my husband in 2007 and I'm really proud of the relationship that we have together. I'm not saying any, like, I don't believe anything's perfect. It's always like working through it, but I am really proud of that. And I was thinking today, like, why can't I have that level of, not why can't I, because I'm working on it, but how can I have such self-worth in that area, relationships, but not the same self-worth in money and business? So in order to do that, I find my triggers. When I get blocked by anything, whenever I feel shy about anything, wherever I feel like I can't do something or I'm not worthy enough of it, I have this process of asking myself, where did I first feel like that in childhood? It's a bit of neuroscience, a bit of psychology, and a bit of the spiritual stuff that I kind of like put together. Where in my childhood did I first feel like that? And then I'll go to like just kind of reprogramming my subconscious mind to raise that self-worth. And you know, that was working for me. It's one of the tools that is working for me. It involves journaling, it involves a lot of deep thought, it involves you know, meditation and thinking, and all of that stuff is in my practice.
That's amazing. And I know the one specific thing that you mentioned as well, and I know you've kind of started doing a few workshops around that and things like that, was you spoke about this sort of goal setting, and you showed me this like pile of journals from like your years and years and years and years and years of doing that. Talk to us a little bit more about that and how that has impacted your life, specifically maybe around career and things like that.
So I think this has really helped because I didn't have any structure growing up. There was no structure. I didn't know how to structure life, didn't know how to work for finances, health and relationships. So this is what, with my pile of books that I have, in 2012, I started to actually like structure out my life. And it started with asking myself, what do I want to achieve in my life? Like, what are the goals that I want to achieve in my life? So every year, the beginning of every year, I write down the experiences that I want to have. And I don't necessarily, some things are like quite specific, but a lot of the things are based on feeling. Like, these are the feelings I want to feel, and I might not know what country I want to travel to, but I know that I want to travel, for example. So I start with that, and then I think, well, what can I do this year? And at the beginning of the year, I think, well, this is what I can probably do in this year, but I break them down into specific sections. So there will be finances, there will be health and you know, appearance, maybe there will be relationships, things that I want with the children. There will be like the other goals, like at one time it was acting, and then like miscellaneous things, like it might be wedding, or you know things like that. Did I miss anything out? I don't think so. And so then I break them down from that year. I have at the beginning of the year the things that I want to achieve in that year, and then I start to chunk them down. So for me, I think, what can I achieve in 6 months? And then I'll think XYZ, I'll see XYZ. I think, what can I achieve in 3 months? And I'll see XYZ. And then I start to go month by month, like literally a dedicated goal setting journal, month by month. This is what I want to achieve this month. And then I break them down into weeks, and then they become targets and they become to-do lists. And they don't, sometimes they change. Like, I'll get to the next year and I'll realize, oh, I actually don't want to do that anymore, or you know, oh, I done that, I actually did that. So I'm flexible with myself and with my dreams. I think we're always like discovering things about us. But okay, I heard a quote that if you those who do plan, those who do plan, and
very deep and true.
So planning, and now I have a planner which I put my goals in, and I literally plan the things that I I'm going for.
That's amazing. That's so inspiring. And I know that we talked about, so if you guys do not yet follow Grace on socials, we'll get to that at the end, but you really should, because I know you're going to be doing more around even workshops and stuff like that around goal setting. So you should
Yeah.
definitely link with her on that. Um, I wanted to come back to just obviously it's Mental Health Awareness Week, month. Should really be mental health awareness every day, but never mind. Um, I wanted to come back to how you navigate it because you kind of talked about now, obviously, the goal setting side of things and the career side of things. How you navigate it or how you are navigating maintaining your mental health through this unreal journey that you've had.
Mm.
You seem like someone who has incredible resilience. You already talked about, you know, the positive affirmations and the speaking positively. But what are maybe some other things that you do when it comes around maintaining mental health, and what maybe struggles have you had along the way with that as well?
Um, so maintaining mental health, such a, I don't know, like how do I think it, it's literally my process. I think if I'm not journaling and
Mm,
getting things out on paper and exploring my feelings,
mm.
yeah, that's how I'm doing it.
Yeah, so
That's
self-reflection.
how I'm doing it. Yeah, exercise is so important. I remember hearing again years ago how, you know, important exercise was. I think I heard a quote saying that, you know, in some studies, 20 minutes exercise can be the equivalent of one antidepressant.
Wow.
So exercise is a really big part of my, you know, whether it's dancing, I just put on some music and dance and do what feels good.
Mhm.
And then I mentioned the other day, like, I'm sure, like, we, you know, read lots and learn lots, all of us here in this
Yeah.
network at the moment. And I'm sure we've all heard the same, you know, the same kind of advice, and we've listened to many of the same people. But I was saying to you the other day, like, I feel for me, one thing that I don't hear very much of is just giving yourself permission to get certain things out your body.
Yes,
And
I was
if,
hoping you'd tell us about that.
yeah, so when you have a certain feel, like me, I have to make sure like no one else can see, because they will probably phone someone. But if I'm feeling, you know, a certain way, I will do what I need to do in that situation. The children, I think it's healthy for the children to see sometimes, but I'm not like they, you know, they are like, you know, and I give them permission to, just like a baby. When a baby, I think we would probably have this conversation. When a baby, what I really admire about children, and maybe perhaps you were saying it, I can't remember who I was having the conversation with. When a baby feels frustrated or tense or whatever, they will drop everything there and then, and they will have a tantrum, and they will cry, and they will let it out, and they will go on and on and on. And if you let them, the tears and the bogies come down, they will feel no shame about it, and then they will get up and they will feel better, and they are
Yeah,
better. And I'm like, we don't really do that.
yeah,
As
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't do that anymore. You get told to, don't do that, you know, stop being silly, or that's, you know, inappropriate or whatever. No, I'm like, I'm gonna if I want to cry on the floor, and this is always only around husband, he only gets to experience this. He will experience me throw myself on the floor, lie on my back, and be like, ah, you know, I will let it out. I will make the noise. The noise feels so good sometimes. Ah, the wailing. Oh my gosh, it's so healing. Like, when was the last time you've done that? It feels so good. And I'm like, I'm the only one. I only hear myself in my block of flats that I live in. Ah, when I'm ready. Ah, and then the will sometimes turn into a laugh, and I'll be in bed at night, and I'll just be like, and then I will be I've gone from to killing myself laughing, tears streaming down my face, and my husband will just lie there on his back the whole time. And literally the last time that happened, he was like, mate, the first time you did that, I was like, what is going on? Like, who am I with? But now he's just used to it, and he loves it, because he knows I just give myself permission to,
Yeah.
like, let it move through my body, get it out, and I'm done with it. I
Amazing.
cry. If I want to cry, I cry. Someone again said recently that, water, salt water is healing. The sea is full of salt water, it's healing. When we've got a cut, you put some salt, you can put some salt in some water and dab it, and it will heal your cut. And our tears have salt inside them. There's a reason for that. It's
Yeah.
healing. Like, let yourself cry and
Yeah.
give yourself permission to cry, get it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my one thing. And another thing is always finding expanders, and it's a reason why I love this network so much. I
Yeah.
came across this idea that, it's probably a little bit off topic, but I think it's a really important
Yeah.
thing to
No,
share.
share it.
I
Yeah.
think it's so important to find someone who inspires you in certain areas. It can be whatever area that you are in. Find someone who inspires you, but you can relate to. You have to be able to relate to that person. You have to see yourself in that person, and sometimes that might be, that person who's inspiring you don't really know it. You might experience through jealousy, particularly if they're like quite close to you, like someone on Instagram. You might feel a little bit of jealousy. A lot of time that feeling is, oh, the feeling is because a part of you sees yourself in that person and they're doing it. So yeah, I call them expanders. It's not a term that I coined. It was like a book that I read somewhere, but it really resonated with me. And in fact, how I got and how I found this network was because one day I'd got to a point in my business where I was like, who am I kidding, right? I'm from a council estate. I had the parents that I had a baby at 16. I am not going to be successful in business. Like, who am I kidding? And I thought, what, I need to go and find someone out there who I can relate to, who I can see myself in. And as
Yeah.
if by magic, putting it out there, I was listening to a podcast, and a woman came on the podcast who had a baby at 17, who lived in a West London estate. I was like, oh my gosh, made me cry. And it was Jessica Huey. So
Right.
Jessica Huey, I was like, I need to find more about this woman. So I just at that time, she just released her book. So I found her book and I was like, oh my goodness. I read her book 3 times and cried three
Wow.
times, like, because I just related to her journey so much. And then I was
What's
like,
her book
I
called
need,
for those who don't know?
pardon?
What's
Oh,
her book?
Purpose. Purpose. Her book's called Purpose. It's by Jessica Huey. And then I was like, no, 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 I need to, she'd done so well. She's had so many great achievements. And I was like, I need to see her. I need to see her. So she had a retreat coming up and I booked myself onto her retreat. And like, when I was there, I just like spent 3 days on her retreat outside of London. Like, she just shifted so much inside me.
Amazing.
So, and then she'd said, I think you need to get in touch with the Precious Network. And that's how I discovered you guys. So, but finding Jessica and seeing her journey, and she'd offered to be my mentor, which was amazing. She shifted something inside.
Yeah.
I just felt the shift. I felt so much shift inside of me. And I was like, right, I can do this.
Yeah.
It's been done. I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it too. And that's the point. I think if your subconscious mind sees someone who you can relate to, it will go, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. And it will get to work. So
Amazing. I love that so, so much. And I love, like, honestly, my favorite thing is when you talk about giving yourself permission. Because I feel like, like you said, it isn't something that is talked about a lot, but it's so powerful, so important. We know what neuroscience tells us about trauma sitting in our body, sitting in our muscles, and how actually the way we're wired, if we could let some of that out in the moment, we would be carrying a lot less of things. So I love that so much. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be doing the noise, girl. Like,
the
thankfully
more,
my housemate's already seen me do all kinds of crazy things, so
right.
she'll be like, nah, there
Yeah.
goes another one.
Do it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you said you do, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll like throw ourselves on the floor, dance around like crazy people. We make a forest. We do this thing where we go when that one of us freaks out. We're like we make a pretend forest around us, and we go when we can't scream because we're in the house. Anyway, not about me. I'm gonna ask you one last question, and just for everybody else, while I ask Grace that question, if you want to have a think about questions that you want to ask Grace, you can type them in the chat. You can send them directly to me or send them to everyone. It doesn't really matter. Or you can also raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you. You can ask it out loud. Just a reminder: if you do ask it out loud, you will be on the recording. So up to you. So my last question actually was around navigating mental health and family. You touched on it briefly. You just mentioned about, when you have your little moments where you throw yourself on the floor and stuff, like the kids see some of it is only for the husband, and all of that. In your desire and in your attempt to shift the trajectory for the next generation,
Mhm.
how does that play a role in how you raise your children and how you speak about things, and maybe even, I guess, remove some of the taboo and challenge some of the stigma that exists around mental health, especially in our communities?
Yeah. Okay, so first I'll start with, I have, because of my childhood, I remember certain times in my childhood where I wasn't able to access certain things,
Yeah.
or certain things got to me a bit more than probably they should have. I remember doing a picture and in year 4, the teacher ripping it up because it wasn't good enough. And my mum actually pulled me out of the school because within all her trauma, she'd always tell us that she would love us and she would never let anyone put us down, including the teachers. So she took me out of that school on that occasion. And on one time she'd sent me to a theatre school, a famous one, but she didn't have the fees to pay. So after a month I was expelled, and I loved performing arts so much, but I didn't get to access it the same way. And that has kind of shaped my mindset into, no, children should be able to access the things that light them up. They should be able to explore who it is they want to be in this world. So I'm very big on that with my children. My son, when he was 12, he was in quite an academic school, but he's very creative and he's very sporty, very athletic, and he didn't fit in that academic box in his high school. So at 12 years old, he said to me, "Mum," he said, I just feel like if I stay in this school, I'm not going to have a bright future. Can we try something else?" And I said, yeah. I said, with all the business, I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but for him at 12 years old to come and say that to me, I was like, we can try homeschooling.
Yeah.
And so we tried homeschooling, we've explored that, and I've been homeschooling him now for 4 years. And we tried to mimic school, and then we realized, no, let's find out what it is you want to do. And so at 16 years old, he knows what it is he is passionate about. He
Yeah.
wants to learn Japanese for a language. He's learning Japanese. He couldn't do that in school. They didn't have that option for him.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
into gaming, which again is a bit like, there's this a bit of stigma around gaming, but finding your expanders, we found a kid in Wembley who's his age earning 130 grand a year at the moment from gaming, right? So we're like, okay, we know it's possible, like, let's do that, and I just am so proud of who he is. He's
yeah,
just such, he's so sure of himself. He's such an amazing young man
yeah,
who, he's great. He's great. And I think that's a part of it, is letting him find himself really young. So all the boys know that. My other son, he the idea of homeschooling, just he can't stand it. He likes the structure of school,
yeah,
he likes that, so that wouldn't work for him. So there's that. They know that they've got permission to explore who they are at home, and that we are going
yeah,
to support them. And with letting their emotions out, obviously we share that, let it move throughout your body. We're big believers that if you keep your emotions suppressed, your negative emotions suppressed, it can turn into illness, and we don't want that. So we I give them the same permission to let their, within, obviously that you kind of have to have, I don't know,
framework.
yeah,
Yeah,
a framework for it. So that kind of comes out through sport. It might come out through martial arts. Sometimes it will, they don't do this so much right now, but another tip that I had was like, just into a pillow.
yeah.
One of the things that I do, that I discovered, like, I just try little things. I was in the bath one day and I like held my nose, went under the bath and screamed at the top of my lungs. No one can hear nothing because you're in the bath. It's great. And so my husband opened the door and he was like, that sounded like it felt really good. I was like, it did. So he tried it. And I thought, this big man who has so much trapped emotions was going to sink underneath the bath and let it all out, and the house was going to tumble. I literally heard, it was the like quietest little noise. But yeah, they pick up these things. We all learn from each other, and we learn how to let it out. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's how we navigate it in this house, I'd say.
Yeah, that's so valuable. I am coming over for dinner when this is over, because the way you're talking about your family, I'm like, I want you all to be my friends.
Oh, yeah. You're very welcome. We'd
Definitely. And I feel like there's going to be a few other ladies inviting themselves around to your house as well.
come. It doesn't look nice on the outside, you know, we're working on buying a nice house. It's a bit, but inside it's lovely and
Right.
homely.
That's
So
all that matters. Okay, wonderful. So, ladies, we have around 13 minutes left of our little call. Does anyone have any specific questions for Grace? Yes. Elaine, I'm going to unmute you. Here we go. Oh, yeah.
Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Grace. It's been absolutely wonderful to listen to your journey. While you were talking, I'd like to know what your relationship. I've got two questions. First one was, what's your relationship with your sister, and
yeah,
what was that like when you were both living through all of that?
yeah.
And obviously now I'm assuming both of you are out of that situation. You're living your own lives. You may even, you've got your own family. I don't know about your sister, but what is that bond like between you?
So I'm 5 years older than her, and I always felt 5 years older than her growing up. I felt extremely guilty leaving home at 15 because I left my sister behind with 14 neglected dogs in that situation, and I felt very guilty about that. But I worked really hard to, you know, get myself on my feet. And eventually, when I did, and I got my own flat, she came to live with me.
Oh,
And so she was in year 9 and year 10, and I was her carer. And she went through school. When she finished school, she actually didn't do very well at school, but afterwards with she's doing fine. She got an apprentice with our local council. She's been working in the public sector in the council since she was 18, and she's now 28, so 10 years. And she lives just around the corner from me. She's got a beautiful daughter. Yeah, we're very close. She had the boys yesterday for a few hours. I shouldn't say that. Social distancing. But yeah.
family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
So,
that's really lovely to hear. Max,
Beautiful.
can I jump in with a second one really
yeah.
quickly? As you know, I work for a theatre access charity, and I'm passionate about expanding the arts, and arts should be for everybody, regardless of where you're from, background, creed, colour, etc., etc. So I'd love to, when eventually I go back to work, I'd really would love you to come, and I'd love to book you to come and talk to either our young people or our families, you know, talk to the parents, because, you know, a lot of parents do, some parents do hold their kids back in terms of the arts. They, even today in 2020, they don't regard the arts as being a, you know, a productive career. And it'd be really lovely for you to have a space where you could, you know, say as much as you like about your journey and where you are now, and how you've used the arts to, you know, almost change your life. So I'd love to obviously get your details, and I can get your
I'd
details.
love
And
to.
I really would love you to be a part of that. Every year we also run a youth leadership conference for our young people. And again, we're always looking for keynote speakers. And again, I'd love you to come and speak to young people.
Oh, I'd love that.
Your work. It'd be absolutely a real pleasure. So thank
Thank
you.
you, Elaine.
Amazing. Oh, I love this. This just made me smile like so much across my whole face. And you are honestly so amazing. And what you just shared about having your sister live with you and your son was already alive. Like, my goodness, who even are you, Wonder Woman?
Oh.
Um, does anyone else have another question? We've got a few more moments. Otherwise, I also have another question, but I want to give someone else the opportunity if you want to. Going once, going twice, and I'm gonna go with my question. um, I was quite keen to know, because you obviously shared about growing up, you shared about your parents, you shared about the ups and downs. What's your relationship with your parents like now?
So, um, My dad seems to have got himself on his feet a little bit. I think, and I probably mentioned this in my article, he went for a time where he was homeless. Like there was times where, you know, I was in a relationship with my now husband, and I'd open the door one morning and he'd be asleep on my outside in the corridor. And, you know, I'm embarrassed to say that there was one occasion where I just stepped over him and said, I don't know who that is. Terrible. I know
No,
it's really bad.
understandable.
Yeah, it was really, yeah. So that was like, but anyway, he wasn't going to do it for himself, so I at one point like dedicated probably a whole year to getting him settled and in a home, and he's in a nice home for like the over 60s, not like a home, like a, he's got his own place,
Yeah.
you know, like sheltered accommodation in Ealing Common. He is loving life right now, still drinks loads, but he often turns up, and even through this lockdown he's just showed up at the door. And you know, I've said like I'm quite worried about his health.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think his isolation is probably more dangerous than coronavirus.
Yeah.
You know, so we welcome him in with open arms, and he loves being around the kids. My mum, she, again, I love my mum so much, but I just find it so hard to connect with her. I feel like the years of mixing antidepressants and alcohol has just, it's just like she's not the same woman that I knew. I can't get through to her anymore, and it's
Yeah.
sad. And that's been the case since I left home. I always thought there'd be a time where my mum would get better and she'd be my mum again, or she'd like, you know, be a grandparent for the kids, but it hasn't happened. So our relationship is strained. I do see her again. She turned up one day recently, and then in my all this lockdown experience, this is going to sound really woo woo, but this is me. I'm quite spiritual like this.
Yeah.
In this lockdown experience, I was doing a lot of work on myself, and I really wanted to do reprogramming on my subconscious mind and go back to as young as I could remember to work on myself. And I wanted to ask my mum how she felt when she was pregnant with me, because I feel like maybe there's a lot of stuff that, you know, I won't go too deep into it, but I'd said to her, I phoned her up, I said, Mum, how did you feel when I was pregnant? And she couldn't talk to me and she couldn't answer the question. And it was quite, you know, I got quite emotional about it because I just tried to connect with my mum and I couldn't. So I put the phone down and then I just journaled, but I like journaled as if I was talking to her higher self. And I had the best conversation with her. Like, she gave me all the answers that I needed to hear. So I do feel like I'm still connected with like her essence. Don't get me started. But yeah, yes.
Oh,
I love them.
Oh gosh. I mean, who's not crying right now? I honestly, I don't think you understand how golden you are. Like, I'm literally like sitting over here. Yeah. I'm literally sitting over here and I'm like, you are gold, you are a diamond, you are light, you are love, like you are crying. And I'm just so grateful that we got to connect, like, and that you would share your story and look at all the hearts. And I feel like I've learned so much from you already, even just in hearing your story and what you just literally, this last bit that you just said about your mom, you don't understand. We're going to talk about that another time, but my goodness, I have some writing to my mother's essence to do. Um, so unreal. Right. We're coming to an end. I think this is a good place to end. And I just, again, want to say thank you so, so, so much. I'm sure I can speak for everybody who was in this call. I'm going to stop the recording now. Here we go.